Hello, this is Mr. Stewart bringing you the 4.4 quiz help guide. This quiz is going to take you through two-step inequalities. So I guess we call it multi-inverse operations, multi-step inequalities. So everything we've learned in Chapter 3 applies to Chapter 4. There's a very particular section in 4.3 that if you did not do as far as the quiz or discussion, you will want to do that first, because it talks about what happens when you multiply or divide inequalities with a negative value. Okay, so I just made up my own little question. So it says select the graph that represents the solution to the inequality. First thing you're going to want to do is solve for the inequality. And so this is going to be a basic one. We always start with the additive inverse stuff first, not the multiplicative inverse stuff. So to undo a minus 2, I'm going to actually subtract 2 from both sides. And those cancel out, and I'm left with a 9 plus a negative 2, which is, or in other words, 9 take away 2, and that's going to be 7. The inequality comes down and doesn't change, because adding and subtracting will never switch the direction of the inequality, only multiplication and division. And then z divided by 3 also comes down. Now we have to undo this division. The opposite of division is multiplication. As long as I multiply by a positive number, then the direction of the inequality will not change. So those cancel out and z is left alone. The inequality stays the same direction, and don't forget to multiply the other side by 3 as well. 3 times 7 is going to be 21. So in my case, the variable z is a solution or a set of solutions that is less than or equal to positive 21. So if I were to graph this, maybe here's my 0, so positive 21 is going to be all the way up here. I want to include 21 as part of my my solution set, because it is less than or equal to 21. And then z is all of those values that is smaller than 21 as well. So all of these can be z, or in other words, all the numbers that is 21 and less is going to be the solution set of the inequality. So this would be my graph. I could also place it on the graph like this. Either way, your task is to now do the same thing with this basic two-step inequality and find the graph that represents the solution. Okay, here's where things can get a little tricky. And we are using decimals and fractions in these as well, because you do need to get really good at using rational numbers. So just make sure you understand that. So solve the inequality. Here's the inequality. And then just be careful. It says fill in the blank using c as the variable and the correct inequality symbol. So you do have to actually use the symbols. You can't spell it out. You just have to type it. Okay. So you'll want to type those in. And then make sure you actually use the number as well. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to make up one of my own. Okay, so here's an inequality that is similar to what you have over here. I'm not the exact same, so just bear with us here. The first thing we're going to want to do, just like in Chapter 3 in equations, we're going to want to undo the positive and negative stuff first. It doesn't look like it, but this is a positive 0 and 8/10, or 0.8. This is a negative 2.3 that's being multiplied to c. So I'm not going to touch this until later. So for now, I undo a positive 0.8 by subtracting 0.8 from both sides. That goes to 0. I'm left with a negative 2.3c is less than whatever 17.6 subtract 0.8 is, and that is a 16.8. A lot of students will mess up this section right here. This is all Chapter 2 and Chapter 1 stuff that we spent so much time with at the beginning of the year. So we keep doing this over and over again. So if you're struggling with this, then we'll need to work some more on just basic addition and subtraction. But for now, the inequality stays in the same direction because I did not multiply or divide by a negative value. However, as I'm looking at this, I notice this is multiplication, and to undo multiplication I'm going to divide. Use the line to show division. Algebra, we're going to use fractions to show division. I'm going to divide both sides by this value right here. So that's a negative 2 3/10 being divided to both sides. And this is going to cancel out. But as soon as I divide both sides by a negative, or I multiply both sides by a negative, the rule is that this inequality changes directions. So C is left alone, and now C is going to be greater than, not less than, whatever 16.8 divided by a negative 2.3 is. And that's going to be that's going to be something like, sorry, I'm just doing the calculator, just using a calculator to do the division. That's going to be negative, and it's going to be like something like 7.3. It's a repeating decimal, so I'm just going to round to the nearest tenth and call it good. The ones that you have here are not going to be a repeating decimal, so that they'll be easy to type in. But, so now, if this were my solution, this is exactly how I would type it in the blank space here, right? I would use the symbols, but understanding that I am going to change the direction here, that's very important. If you want to know why, you'll want to go back and watch the 4.3 video discussion that explains why, or make sure you actually review your notes. We will have covered this in class by the time you took this quiz. So anyway, that will be that solution. And we'll move on. Okay. Again, fractions are just fractions. They're not super scary. They're just numbers like any other number. So yeah, you can use a calculator if you want to, but here we go. Fortunately for you guys, we actually kept the fractions, with a common denominator, so that makes things a little bit easier for you. But they are just numbers, so we're just going to undo those numbers one step at a time. This is division, this is subtraction, and so we're going to undo the subtraction first by adding 1/4 to both sides. Make sure you understand when we mean one side, we're talking about two sides. Just like an equation, the inequality is that barrier between them. Okay, so if I add 1/4 to both sides, that cancels out, and I'm left with P over 2 is greater than. And this is what I would do with the fractions. If I'm doing this by hand quickly, I would convert this to an improper. So 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3, 9, 10, 11 fourths. And I'm adding 1/4 to that. Well, actually, that would be pretty easy. I shouldn't have even had to do that. Really, if I think about it, 1/4 plus 3/4, that would be 1 whole plus another 3. So that should be equal to 3 right here. But let's check. So 11 plus 1 is going to be 12. 12/4 does equal 3. So yeah, I kind of didn't really think about that till too late, but that's okay. Either way, we get P divided by 2 is greater than 3. And then all I have to do is undo this division by multiplying. So I'm multiplying both sides by 2. That goes away, and P is still greater than a 6. This time I got 6. If I were graphing this, which you're not asked to do in this case, but if I was graphing this, P would be any value that's only larger than 6 but not equal to 6. So that's what that graph would look like. Alright, last question here, question number 4. Story problem that wants you to set up an inequality. So it reads, you are renting a moving truck for a day. There's a daily fee of $20 and then a charge of 75 cents per mile. Your budget allows a maximum total cost of $65. Write and solve the inequality that represents the number of miles you can drive the truck. Well, it's actually asking you just to write the inequality. So this is kind of a fun little question. If I start here at 0, so it says my maximum total budget is $65. You need to understand that I have $65. I can actually use that $65. So $65 is a possible solution to this inequality. Anything above $65 won't be a solution, because as soon as I pass my maximum limit, I don't have any more money, so I can't use that. And so my budget has to be anything that is smaller than $65. And hopefully that gets you thinking about which inequality this has to be, as you were to, if you were to, use this. And as you're going to graph this, you need to take into consideration, I've got $20 here. That's automatically going to be removed from my 60. So really my budget's going to be somewhere down here, and all of this is actually going to go away. But nonetheless, this is just asking you to set up, right? Just to set up an inequality that would represent this story. So hopefully this is helpful for you, and we'll see you next time.